Good morning, everyone. Brandon here again. Today I'm going to provide a little research defense of my research topic. My topic title is The Evolution of Trade, Tobacco, and Coinage in Roanoke and Jamestown. So to address the first question was, what was my research question being addressed? And it started out pretty broad, obviously, like I think most do. But once I boiled it down, the question I found I was trying to address the most was why did it take so long for the colonies, especially Virginia, to standardize a form of currency? On top of that, and where did um, our current money that we use today or currency originate from, and how did it originate? So that's the research question I focused on throughout the paper. The next question was the significance of the research question. And I felt the significance of the paper was um, there was very little written still today about the origins of money in the colonies, specifically Virginia. Um, so, I mean, that's the significance that I felt applicable to this paper. So my explanation of primary sources, with being, 400 years old, the writings that the colonists provided back then, most of them are gone. There was a few that survived. So the writings that I had to focus on, the majority of them were from out of England, dealing with the currency and the charters from England at the time. There were two primary sources that do exist pertaining to the Jamestown colony itself were from John Rolfe and then Captain John Smith. From Roanoke, Sir Walter Raleigh there's still some pertinent primary sources available from his writings as well. So those three personal documents I was able to use. But as far as archival research, obviously I was unable to get to libraries because of the whole COVID situation. And actually, I believe, Ohio libraries today are still closed because of this virus. Um, so, like I said, I was able to focus on the three actual settlers or leaders of the voyages that came to the colonies, as well as the original three charters of the Virginia Company by Samuel, I think is Bemis is his last name, put together a couple of good documents that are easy to follow because trying to read the original writings in these charters it would take longer than an 8-week course. And then Theodore DeBry, who was one of the first accountants in Jamestown, actually in the Virginia colony. Um, his works were published called The Three Charters of Virginia and A Brief and True Report of Virginia. So he was a good one to use, and as well as Susan Kingsbury, which a lot of you might have heard of. She's an author and a historian of the Virginia colony, and she put together the works of it's titled The Records of the Virginia Company of London, which had a lot of pertinent information. And then, like I said, John Rolfe published Virginia in 1616, which gave a lot of personal, detailed accounts of trade, currency, um, and money throughout Virginia. So, moving into the summation of research findings, um, why did it take so long for these colonists to standardize a form of money? Why did each colony have different forms of money? Well, the long and basically the short, we'll go with the short because of time constraints. The short reason is England had control of the colonies, and England was not giving up control of these colonies. They were not letting each colony individualize money. They were not letting them standardize a form of money because they wanted complete control. The king wanted to assure his authority was being um, upheld in the colonies. And there's also way too many moving parts in the early 16th or 17th century in the colonies, especially Jamestown, that I chose to focus on. Um, there was stuff happening that just did not fare well to try to develop a standardized form of currency. Um, the Indians, the Powhatans specifically, were using, it's called wampum, which was shells and like beads that got out of the ocean. They were using those for currency as well as copper, which was new to the settlers. Well, copper is cheap, so they were able to figure out a way to um, basically get these goods, corn, maize from the Powhatans, just from copper, and then seashells. So that was used in the beginning, and then obviously Jamestown, Virginia moved to tobacco. Tobacco trade boomed. Um, the in trading was great for the colony, but then England stepped in and said, "Hey, you can't do this." So that fizzled out there for a while. It eventually came back, but they tried making mints, a mint in the colony, which failed. Different coins, but they all, Massachusetts weights of a coin would be different. What they valued their coin as to what Virginia valued their coin as. They used the Spanish coins, the 8 piece. Once again, colonies to the north valued their 8 piece more than what Virginia did. So it was one basic disaster after another trying to get a standardized form of money. Um, on top of that, you had the dynamic of the Powhatan Nation within Virginia. There was a constant infighting. There was even in the beginning, everyone heard about the starving time, which pushed everything back. Um, Indians kept wanting to attack the colonists. The relationship just wasn't good. Um, so, in summation, I'm going to just read a little bit of my conclusion here to basically, hopefully, sum up, some of my findings of the origin of how money originated. Throughout the beginning decades of all 13 colonies, the most common type of currency was agricultural commodities, grain in the north and tobacco and rice in the south. Not until more than a century after Jamestown's founding did all the colonies move to paper money. There were slight differences as to how the individual colonies came to accept paper money as legal tender, but they all eventually got there by 1755 when Virginia became the first and the last colony to issue official legal coinage. What I mean is, Virginia was the first colony to issue legal coins from England, but it was the last colony to provide their colonists with a legal form of currency. The Virginia colony, beginning in Jamestown in 1607, tried diligently for over a century and a half to reform and better their forms of money throughout stores, which were banks, and mints, but failed. The first English mint in America was eventually started in 1652 in Massachusetts. However, it was short-lived. King Charles II shut down the mint in 1682. The first English bank in America opened in Massachusetts in 1688, which was a private bank that issued paper money for mortgaged land. It was also immediately invalidated for reasons of another day. On December 10th, 1690, the first paper currency was issued in the Western Hemisphere by the Massachusetts Bay Colony. It would be another century and a half of bartering within the 13 colonies, all using different forms of paper money and coinage, until the Continental Congress of the United States authorized the issuance of continental currency in 1775. Then in April of 1792, the United States Congress created the United States dollar as its country's standard unit of money. The Declaration of Independence officially freed the colonies from British monetary regulations, and they began to issue paper money. Unfortunately, to end, just as the failed acts in Jamestown in 1609, there was nothing to back this currency, and it became worthless by the end of the war. With that, sorry for running over. Take care. Hope to see you guys later. Goodbye.